Well, so um, do you all have um, what one of the questions? Do you? How many of you have copies of the Haggadah of my Haggadah?
Uh, I don't have it on me
You
currently.
don't have
Yeah,
it.
not in front of me, but I know we
Okay,
have them in our building.
right. Um, so you're all in places where you're going to be using it, right? Because I sort of like there was also the possibility that we're going to be kind of a wide range of people, but so that way I can kind of like in addition to some talking about some of the uh, principles to like leading a Seder that kind of gets people involved and is thoughtful and whatever. I will, take the opportunity to kind of like walk you through some of the features of um, and some of the things that kind of went into this Haggadah that I hope and that were certainly intended to make your jobs easier, right? With the kind of complex mixed groups that you're inevitably going to have at a Hillel where people are coming from all over and from all sorts of different families. Um, but at first, here I'm just what I'm going. At first, I just want to start by saying that, like, for for me, leading a seder is a really huge privilege. I love leading the seder. I grew up um, watching my father lead the Seder. Um, he always led the Seder from the Haggadah that his father used leading the Seder. Um, it was real. There's so much kind of tradition, but also uh, people come in with they kind of have certain highlight associations, but there's a lot of space in between. Right? There's the few songs that everyone knows about and are waiting for. There's the food part. There's the complaining about why haven't we gotten to the food part. It's always important. But there's a lot of space in between, and if you're thoughtful about just about filling some of that space, there's a lot that you can do, right? And even more than and it's going to come at first. Uh, my first publishing project was a venture, um, and it's fun. Like lots of people that have the venture use it, but um, when people use a venture, and Shabbos davening is like this too. Like it's pretty standard, and people expect you come in expecting something pretty standard, and there's limited space for creativity. The Pesach Seder is really not like that. So that means that you have the opportunity just by like planting a few seeds, finding some ways to let people um, sort of get involved and let people start talking and thinking and sharing to create a really memorable experience. Um, so I hope you're excited about that, even if you just found out that you have to do it. But like, um, and I hope you're excited about kind of going from being a person who came to your family Seder or whichever Seder and kind of was just along for the ride to being in the place of creating an experience for other people and sort of kind of shaping experience for other people. Um, it's one of the reasons that I really enjoy leading davening. Um, I like to sing, which doesn't hurt, but I love the experience in the sense of taking people on a journey, like that I knowing that like they came here, people are going to come to your Seder, wanting to have a cool Seder experience, um, and they're looking to you to help them have that. And that also hopefully means that at least a good number of them, not all of them, but like a good number of them will come ready to try stuff, ready to experiment as long as it's kind of framed in the right way. So I'm going to just take you through some of kind of my kind of thoughts about leading a Seder and getting people engaged in a Seder. As we go through, especially since we're a small group, like whatever, feel free to like jump in with general questions, with specific questions about specific texts, things you've always wondered about. If you've always wondered about it, I probably have something to say about it. So really, feel free to kind of do that. I'm gonna screen share this with you, but I'm also going to just share with you so you have it. Just I have my little set of Seder leader slides, um, and if it's helpful, I will share with you, although I'm required to like to say that like this is just um, for for you to use in for us to share here and for you to use in preparing like but I'm gonna share with you um wait, copy link, a cool PDF of the Haggadah. You think PDFs are just for sharing stuff online, but actually this PDF is how, actually not this PDF because this has been spread, but this PDF is just broken down into single pages, is actually how it got sent to the printer. You would not think that, right? But that's just the book goes off as PDFs and comes back as a nice bound book. But okay, to start, let's see where we are here. Let's see. How do I make this bigger? Okay. Youth and Haggadah to plan an amazing Seder, which I admit I then changed the name of what I called the session, but I forgot to change it in the slideshow, so sorry about that. The first thing that and if you're looking, if you open up the PDF of the Haggadah itself, and we'll look through this a little bit as we go along. One of the goals that I had in the way in the way the Haggadah is laid out is the Haggadah text is not like uniform. It's not right. One of the things I hate about some of the old Haggadot, and the Haggadah that a lot of people use is you look and it's like page after page of undifferentiated blocks of Hebrew that feel like they're all that they don't mean anything. And that's not actually true of the Haggadah. The Haggadah has it has structure. It has really sort of key points and digressions. It has intense moments and later moments. There are there are different kinds of moments, and if you right, one of the things I'm just going to stop this for a second, what I want to say is use that, right? Find things that you think are worth talking about, that you think your peers will be interested in thinking and talking about, um, and fit them into kind of the structure of this text. And somebody had asked about leading a Seder for people with different backgrounds, with sort of whether it's Orthodox reform and conservative reform, knowledgeable and not knowledgeable. One of the key things to making that work is for the more traditional people, they're going to want to feel like you're saying the Haggadah. Do not be scared. We'll talk about this more, but don't be don't be hesitant about skipping things. You're not going to be able to read every page of the Haggadah and do some interesting things in the length of an average college student's attention span. You won't. Don't try. And the Haggadah is not a text that needs to be sort of right done beginning, even though some people treat it that way. But you do want to feel like you're doing a ritual, and it'll feel like a ritual, and it'll feel kind of authentic if you are going through and reciting pieces of the Haggadah, and fitting in things that kind of fit with those pieces. So really draw on the text as a frame. And I'm going to share one thing with you that I have found, and and other people have told me is kind of a helpful thing. This is one of the things that you'll find in the Haggadah, right? Is the introduction to, after you have the four questions here, and then you have what I call the four answers. The four answers is actually something I made up, and by made up, I actually mean that I spent a lot of time trying to kind of just understand the structure of Magid, right? You get to the beginning, there's like you have the four questions, and then there's like all this stuff, and it also feels like we're in the middle of this. What's going on? And then we get to the 10 plagues, and we sing some stuff, and then we eat. The four answers is a way of seeing a clear structure in this whole thing, right? Because after we ask questions, the Haggadah doesn't just answer in some kind of systematic way, and it doesn't answer in a long way either. The first answer is this paragraph right here. Not even what we think of as the whole first paragraph. The first answer to the question of what's important about this night is we were slaves to Pharaoh, and God brought us out with great might. Right? We were in need. God brought us out. Period. That's the story. It's actually the whole story. Oh, but there's a moral. The moral of the story is the reason you need to know that we were slaves and God brought us out is if God hadn't brought us out, we and our children's children, we would all still be slaves. That's always a little bit of a hard statement to get your head around, right? Well, we would still be slaves. But what it kind of means is if God hadn't brought us out in that way, if we hadn't been come out in this one moment as a group, right, we would never have become us. And right. And that's a chance that's first of all, you can see that like there's an answer, what happened, and what does it mean for each of us? What does it mean for us to um, to appreciate being part of the Jewish people? What does it mean to us? What does it mean to each of the people you're sitting with? What does being part of the Jewish people mean to you? Um, is it something that you are that feels essential to you, um, or just a fact about you? Is it something that when are there times you feel proud of it, um, or awkward about it? Questions that are certainly on people's minds now. And you'll find here, I'm going to go through it all, but a guide to find different answers, a sense of what are the different answers kind of saying about what's important about this story, what story should we be telling, and hopefully not only give you some shape to your Seder, but a sense of some of the different stories that you might want to share, or you might want to invite uh, the people you're studying to share. Um, as you go through, there are texts that everyone just knows that you're going to spend time on because everyone's expecting them, and the ones that are kind of really critical, right? The Four Children kind of is both. Um, there's always lots to say about it, um, and one of the other features of this Haggadah that was probably not true of it's true of very few Haggadot, surprisingly few. First of all, everything um, that you might want to read together or sing is transliterated. Transliterated, hopefully, in a way that shouldn't look to you as people who grew up doing Sederim, shouldn't look to you like, oh, this is a beginner's Haggadah. Should look to you just like a traditional Haggadah. But the people who don't read any of the Hebrew, who are undoubtedly will be at your Sederim, can sing along or read along or follow along. The other thing, uh, when growing up for us, it was my father always made clear that he was going to ask people around the table to read pieces of the Haggadah, and that reading could be in Hebrew or English. Um, and all of the translations, in my opinion, right? All of the translations should read like real sort of sort of will read like real English, right? Don't be afraid to like ask somebody to read something. They're not going to get it's not going to come out with lots of language that doesn't make sense or doesn't sound like anything. So use that. Um, okay, so that was thing number one. Right now I'm going to go. Thing one is use the structure, use the text, use those four answers, use the way that the text is laid out. Get people to read and to think about it. And the second thing is, I just lost this. Wait. Uh, um, go back to this. The second thing is mm, all of them, all of the answers, and all of the key, the sort of the critical text in the Haggadah focus on personal connection. Focus on what is this story of Yetziat Mitzrayim supposed to mean to us now, right? That's the whole point of the Seder. Um, is it's all supposed to come back to us. So give people a chance to make personal connections. How do they feel redeemed? How do they feel connected to connected to or part of the Jewish story? Do they feel like their place in the Jewish story, does their place in the Jewish story feel different now than it did a couple years ago? For a lot of people, it does. Um, did they, and here's one that I think is can really be helpful to you. Invite people to share experiences. Try to have some questions that invite people to sort of talk about things, sort of their life experiences, their perspectives, and encourage them to both share and to be curious, or to listen to other people with curiosity and openness. Um, the Seder is not a time to like start debating contemporary contentious issues, of which there are many. Um, uh, it's a time to kind of everyone to all be on a level playing field and everyone have a chance to share and to hopefully feel connected. And I want to share with you, and the next slide is this is actually, I don't know if any of you have come across Ask Big Questions. It was a project that a friend of mine did working for National Hillel a bunch of years ago. Um, some people still use some of the materials, but he would gather, Rabbi Josh Fagelson, he would gather groups of students. I'm sure Josh. He would gather groups of students to like discuss big questions, and this is how he defined defined a big question. And I'm going to let you read it for a minute. So I'm interested in hearing in knowing sort of what you kind of notice here. Like, do you feel like you would not you kind of know what this means,
Yeah.
or have a sense of like what? Yeah. So, like, think about like how you do that. How you would like what are the kinds of questions that might be big that might qualify here as big questions?
Like, I think the classic question on how are we free today? How are we enslaved today? Is would fit into this box.
Right. Um, it could. I find that it's good to try to ask things that are a little less well trodden. Um, like um, like asking people to talk about what does hope mean to you, right? if you think about Israelites in Egypt holding on to hope, right? Uh, right. What does hope mean, and when have sort of you experienced it? A question like what's so like what is gratitude like? What does gratitude feel like to you? Um, when has it felt real? When has it felt meaningful? When has it felt when has it felt really important to express gratitude or to hear? Um, right? When have you kind of like experienced this in a way that's not just right? Can you share something about your experience of any of these themes or feelings or experiences that's not just a kind of general thing that anyone can say. Here's a moment when I learned about uh, what it means to sort of keep faith with something um, uh, in the face of hardship, um, or what it to celebrate something. Um, there are all these great questions, great themes that you can kind of point out, open up um, in a way that people can jump onto. Um, all right. I'm going to pause there for a minute uh, and ask you sort of before I sort of go forward with the various things, like what are the things that you're thinking about, that you're concerned about, that you're feel like uncertain about in terms of thinking about leading a Seder.
I'm wondering, also, I do unfortunately have to head out in a few minutes,
Mm.
but before that, I'm kind of thinking in order to have these kinds of discussions, whether it be a big question kind of conversation or potentially like digging deeper into a specific passage of the Haggadah, practically, at what size of a group should you be including the whole group? And at what size should you maybe be splitting up into smaller discussions of people chatting with those near to them?
I mean, I think that in any of the size groups that you're talking about, um, you're gonna uh, you're gonna want to sort of like put out a question and have people at people in groups of a table of 10 or 15 or whatever sort of have their own discussions because how many people are going to feel comfortable standing up and answering a question in front of 200 people, and even if they did feel comfortable, you'd have a chance to like let four people talk. But if there's a group of 10, um, then uh, then they'll both feel like, oh, they're supposed to be part of it, and much more kind of able to do so. Um, sometimes you can have like once you've had there's a classic kind of education thing of having smaller groups, whether it's 10 people or it's just starting with 3 or 4 people, um, discussing and then kind of letting some people kind of share out um, something that came up in their conversations. Um, that's both a way to get more people involved, kind of in that first stage, right? And but also people are much more likely to share something with a larger group that they already thought about. Um, so if in your group of four people, you kind of like say something, oh, that, or it might be that you say something, and when with a larger group, is there anybody who wants to share something that came up and is like, oh, Jonas said this amazing thing, and sort of, I had never thought about it before. And it kind of pushes away a lot of that awkwardness, and just um, gets people to connect with each other, which is part of the point, right? And what are other things you're thinking about? Hmm.
I guess I'm thinking about, well, like the way that ours is going to be, it's kind of spread out and like trying to get multiple people to be like to lead a whole Seder.
Mhm.
Um, Obviously I can provide them as many resources, but like how can I give them the confidence to be like it's all laid out there for you and like it's not that hard and also like you do it together. It's not a thing you're doing by yourself. Because like if we're splitting up into different rooms, then we want multiple people to be like leading, I guess, mini seders to make it more intimate and whatever. But like I need to find those leaders to do it. Like how can I empower them
Mhm.
to take it on?
So,
And not seem so
right,
intimidating of you're leading a Seder for like, and this is their
right,
experience and you're gonna eat. Not that you're gonna mess it up if you mess it up, but like they're looking to you for an experience. Like that's daunting.
right. Um, so the first thing is, one of the things I started with, give them permission to abbreviate, right? One of the things I have in the beginning of the book, um, is a is a little guide to, if you're trying to sort of cut down to the basics, like here are the basics. So right there, right, like if they want to just hit kind of the key highlights, the things that people will really miss if you don't do it right. It's right there, and that can be a starting point. If they can go through those and feel like the ones that people that we sing, they kind of know how to, they know the songs. Um, that's like one important piece. Uh, just a second part. Look, one of the other things that's true of the Seder and true of really every ritual is there's uh, people love, and anytime people talk about like the different aspects of prayer, they talk about keva and kavanah, people's favorite words. Like they don't know any other words, they know those words, right? Um, but um, the kind of the original meaning is that right, keva is like these kind of like sort of unplanned, kind of like speaking from the heart kind of experiences. And kavanah is this formal set ritual, right? The kavanah, I mean, it's sort of the opposite. Sort kavanah is like the unformed, and keva is the fixed ritual. The fixed ritual is modeled on temple sacrifices. If you ever seen anything about sort of what temple rituals like, whether it's the Jerusalem temple or other, sort of other sort of like ritual traditions, right? Temple rituals tend to be very formal and precise and guided by rules, right? It's a performance. A, Performing a ritual is a meaningful thing that's different from having a sort of a emotional, fuzzy, whatever, or a sort of cathartic experience. Um, and performing the ritual is an important part of it. And some of that's singing, some of that is just sort of reciting some of the key texts. Uh, you know, whether in Hebrew, alternating Hebrew or English, just inviting different people. And this again, here's where like um, whether people are using transliteration, whether they're using the translation, just inviting people to just would you mind reading? Um, and that's another piece of it. And the third piece is a good question that like a good question that invites people to like share their experiences, hopefully not at such great length, right? You kind of like, you know, sometimes depending on where you want to like actually really always you want to kind of have a timer like, okay, in your group in your at your table, right? We're gonna like I want you to sort of share sort of your experience of this, and like we're gonna have um we're gonna take 7 minutes, everyone, right? And then after 7 minutes, like it always if people get going talking to each other, like however much time you give is never going to be enough, and that's totally okay, right? That's actually good, right? It means you've gotten people to share some stuff, you've gotten uh, some of the juices flowing, and then you'll pause at another point and kind of they'll be primed to go. So, but if you invite people to like, if you ask a question that you feel like people are going to have something to say about, like I'm not always sure that the what does freedom mean is a question that people have so much to say about, or maybe not so much to say about that uh, um, that will kind of be interesting, and but um, but talking about like, but but if you can find questions that like people have something to say about, right? Um, you know, if one of the stories is about getting the people getting back to Israel, right? And completing this cycle of like having left Israel and then ultimately this great circle and coming back to it, right? Um, a great opportunity to like to talk about what is it, what is home to you, right? What does home mean to you? What is home? What is being home? What does coming home feel like? Um, uh, or can you tell us about the place that about the where you feel most at home? Um, that's a question that like I could talk about. Done. I'm sure any one of us like, and each one of you will have a different answer. That's the great thing, and I'd be really interested to hear each of your answers, um, both as a way of hearing an experience that's different from mine and getting to know each of you. And just getting to your question of like, oh, this seems so daunting. You know what? A few of those simple prompts or questions, you don't have to do much, right? You can set them going and let people um, let people share with each other. And again, you want to keep track of time, and right, you don't one of the things that I never want to do is right some of the most important sort of pieces in the Haggadah text are towards the end of Magid. Um, and I never want to feel like people are already, I'm halfway through and people are already so impatient that like I have to rush through the kind of the most important moments. Um, so you want to be aware of like how much time you have, but but like a few simple things, right? You don't, you know, you don't, your friends are not going to want to, your friends who are leading are not going to want to like stand up in front of 40 of their friends and give a long explanation of something about like Jewish tradition,
Right.
probably. Um,
Right.
uh, and so you want to make sure they understand that that's not what they're expected to do, right? And not right in the way that if you imagine the weather, it's like often when a rabbi is leading a ritual, especially something like a ritual like the Seder, they'll do a lot of like stopping before something to explain. Now we're going to do this thing that this symbolizes the blah blah blah, and we say this because our ancestors right this kind of whole explaining thing. Um, you don't need to do that, right? You're performing this ritual. Um, uh, you're uh, and to the extent that it's just a ritual and it's reciting, that's fine. And the moments when you know what, this story of the five rabbis. We're going to read this in English, um, and um, and I wonder how you imagine that conversation went, right? Like um, they spent all night dis- discussing the story of the Exodus, right? I can barely get my kids to give me 10 minutes on it. um, uh, right? Invite people to think together, right? You don't have to be the expert. You're the you're you're the guide, right? So the thing you want to go in with you know some of it can be kind of off the cuff, but you want to go in with a few good questions. You want to have kind of flagged the text that you're going to make sure that you hit, and then right, uh, you'll right you're going to do the four children, whether you spend a lot when do you that's a place where you stop and spend some time, or whether you just kind of read them and like take some brief about them, and right for me Vihisha Amda, right, both there's some great tunes to it, and it's one of the most sort of like for me one of the most important lines of the in the Haggadah, right. um One of the things you'll see, this is part of the beauty of getting to make your own book, um, is the things that for me feel like defining and really important. They look different, right? Here you have your text, right? You have this, right? But the right, Vihisha Amda is framed by the lions. Um, Originally, the lion was like facing you, and with this big, beautiful, like mane, like and it's like and people found it scary. It's like I was like, oh, I loved like the first versions, and then the artist I was working with like turned them to the side, and now they look like the Lion of Judah, right? Kind of the lion, like the seal of Jerusalem, like protecting you, which is the point. The point was an image of God standing guard, like God's promise to always kind of be, standing with us. And another one that, um, right, this is a text that I want you to turn to that page and be like, oh, that feels different. Um, uh, so, which way of saying the thing you want to know in advance is you want to have a few sort of good prompts and questions ready for different sort of tied to different points. You want to know the texts that are like the key ones that you want to make sure you're going to hit. Uh, feel like you're you feel like they feel capable of starting the songs that they know that people are going to want to sing. Um, and I I like to have a couple of like fun activities to to invite people to do. And I'll tell you a secret about this. One of the greatest educational games ever is paper bag dramatics. You know, I've done paper bag dramatics at camp or whatever. Maybe you call it something else. But like, no, really, paper bag dramatics was um, you put people into groups of whatever, and then you give them a paper bag with like five random objects, and they have to like tell like answer particular question or tell a story using those five random objects. Right, each of those objects have to be part of the story. Um, and then of course, like it's yeah, um, uh, you're trying to explain what it felt like to stand at the Red Sea, and you have to use a bottle of you know moisturizer, um, or I don't know what other things around here and like so of course now here's the thing. Here's why it's brilliant. What you're going to come out with is going to be a little silly, right? Because you have to figure out how to incorporate these random things. But also, nobody's going to expect it to be anything else. So you're not going to feel pressured to like if I just if I just told you if I just asked you, you know what, choose somebody from the Israelites and and describe the Exodus from from their point of view, like that feels very hard, right? Or think of somebody in Jewish history like who like and like describe and tell their story. That's hard. But if I tell you, okay, I just this is pulled this off my shelf here. See my little virtual background thing is making this difficult. I'm here. If I put her on your table and say, tell tell her Exodus story, that's just like yeah, I can kind of see you like coming up with that story in your head, right? Um, tell a story of finding freedom that involves here. Wait, this this is a hiking pole. One of those like things for backpacking. Um, you know, once I give you like something like that, suddenly, first of all, you got some prompts to get you to generate ideas. You're not like trying to come up with something in a void, right? And the I've lowered the pressure and expectations all at the same time. Suddenly, it's like a fun thing. People are going to laugh, and they're going to talk about the thing that you're hoping they talk about, right? And share with each other in a way that is fun and they're going to have a good time. Um, right. So, I mean, but if you had like, you know, a few, random things like that that were like, oh, that are on the table and that you put on the tables and people don't know what they're for. And then at a certain point, you're like, you were wondering why you had these little statues on your table, right? Now's the point we're going to do that. Uh, just a few moments of where people get to be playful and connect with the ritual in a different kind of way, right? Because the biggest thing about a great Seder is it doesn't bog down, right? You want to like have the time, right now we're going to read. Like now here, I want to like pause for a discrete amount of time, right? And right, but also, um, it's a celebration, right? It's ultimately like here's why "Beholder Adore" is such an important thing line to me because it doesn't say we're supposed to think of ourselves as if see ourselves as if we are slaves or like we suffered through slavery. We're supposed to see ourselves as having been freed, like as right. We're supposed to be in that moment of like of like real release of freedom from like try to imagine yourself free of like all of the things that are making you absolutely freaking crazy right now, right? Imagine the moment when like those end, right? When the you can pick your own sort of thing, but like and what does that feel like? What do you imagine that will feel like? Um, what does it feel like? Despite all of the and remember, whatever we're going through right now, Jews have recited these same texts and done the same ritual in times and places of much greater hardship. And they also took a deep breath and tried to find the joy. Tried to find the joy, and they started singing, right? They started singing Hallel, right? Uh, and yeah, so I would say you should reassure anybody yourselves and other people who are leading Steream, first of all, that it's not a big amorphous blob, right? There are sort of discrete pieces. There's a discrete line of this ritual. There are discrete and different sort of key texts um, that give you things to talk about. That it's it should be partly ritual, partly a performance of this, and that's doing honor to it. Right? And they're not supposed to be lecturing people, right? They're supposed to be giving people a chance to open up and share, and a chance to sort of play, play and laugh, and ultimately a chance to feel that sense of freedom and release, and dive into that, and you know, and that once you get people going, um, uh, the momentum kind of builds.
Rabbi, I have to
Yeah,
go, but I
you
just
too.
wanted to thank you so much for
It's
hosting
great.
this and sharing with us.
Pleasure. Um, okay, thanks for joining us.
Thank you again.
So, are there?
I
Yeah.
also I also have to head
Okay.
out, but thank you for this. This was really helpful.
Good. Um, and I sent you I'll tell you one other thing that uh and it's in the I have two songs that I have taught to my family, and I try to get them to sing, which I sometimes succeed and sometimes don't. Um, but are both amazing songs, and like capture what I think can be so beautiful about Seder, better than just about anything else. One is this is called "We Are." There's a link. The title is linked to a recording of it. You can listen to it. I'm not going to sing it for you because I would embarrass myself. But um, but the chorus is, we are our grandmother's prayers, we are our grandfather's dreamings, we are the breath of the ancestors, we are the spirit of God. And like that, like what, like when you do the like the midrash and you talk about the reciting that passage of my father was wandering Aramean and blah blah blah. That's the thing that Jews would say when they were standing in the temple and they're telling the story of how their ancestors went through all this hardship, dreaming that one day their great great grandchildren would be able to live in the land and go up to the temple and bring. And here I am. I'm literally doing the thing that like that they were like, you know, that was like the focus of the like. How amazing is that, right? So that's one. If any of you actually like learns a song and like or plays it for people at your Seder, tell me because I like because I'll be very happy. Um, and the other is this old Irish folk song. I learned it from Pete Seeger, but because the feeling of at the end when you get to like Behold Our Vador, and then you switch into Hallel, is supposed to be like, yeah, through all of the trouble and the turmoil, like nothing can shake my certainty that like I have place I have a place in the world and it's beautiful and it's precious and like how can I keep from singing? Um those are just two little images to like kind of carry with you and make beautiful things, right? Um there's no right answer. It's the thing. There's no right answer. It's just good stuff. Um okay. Feel like we're at the point of wrapping up. You're welcome if you had any if you have other things